It's all about the pets. Steve Dale's Pet World. Saturday afternoon at 4 on Super Talk 1270. It's time for Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270. Talk of the Town, brought to you by Big Boy, just get in line, it moves fast. Benchmark Mortgage. Call Joe Sheehan, your mortgage planner, at 701-400-3926. Dakota Pharmacy and Dakota Natural Health Center. We're here to help you stay well. Trademark Realty, Peak Automotive and Service, and Silver Ranch.
You're tuned to Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270. I'm Steve Bach, along with Kevin Oberlander, Dakota Pharmacy, Dakota Natural Health Center. And before we start the program today, I want to say condolences to the Mercer County Sheriff who died in the line of duty during a pursuit, and heartfelt wishes to the entire law enforcement community, especially up in Mercer County with that loss from yesterday. So, Kevin.
Good morning.
Good morning. I just had a little trip, and you brought back a friend, I hear. So.
Yeah, I feel fine. My voice is a little compromised, so I'll muscle through it. Just bear with me.
We'll get through it this morning. Of course, Dakota Pharmacy, Dakota Natural Health Center, Kevin Oberlander, pharmacist. So biofilm bacteria, we touched on this briefly in the past, and oral care of the mouth, gum disease, bigger issue than a lot of people think. It's something so simple. But if you don't have good mouth health, you can have a lot of different problems that and a lot of different symptoms that pop up. And biofilm bacteria. Now, we know the mouth is full of bacteria. Explain what biofilm bacteria is.
So biofilm they're complex, they're organized communities of microorganisms. They adhere to surfaces. And I thought we should talk about it again because we touched on it a while back, and we focused mostly on the biofilm in the mouth and the major cause for gum disease. But we have these systemic biofilm that find their way into our system. And a good way to explain biofilm is organisms get together, they share their strengths, they morph into resistant organisms, and they build this slimy shell around themselves. And that shell gets to be impenetrable to medications, to enzymes that can break these bacteria down, and then they find a place to live. And not only do they live in our gums and in our mouth, but they live in our system. So there's a lot of people that are so-called ill, and I think a part of their problem is candidas, yeast. These microorganism biofilms are occupying space in their system, and whether it be their GI tract or their lungs or surrounding, our body's a system of cavities. The liver and the kidneys are held in these abdominal cavities, so these biofilm can adhere to the surfaces, not only on these organs, but in the linings, and they can be extremely detrimental.
Well, let's back up a little bit, because when you think about bacteria, so, first step in your digestive tract, it's your mouth. And there's good bacteria and there's bad bacteria in there. So differentiate between the two a little bit, because when we're talking about biofilm bacteria, is it good bacteria, bad bacteria, combination thereof?
Mostly they're going to be detrimental bacteria. Some good bacteria might be part of that community, but they're overrun by the bad bacteria. They probably don't survive. They may even morph into a bad bacteria because of the messages that they're getting from the other organisms that are housed in that community. And biofilm are what's called ubiquity. They're prevalent all over. They're prevalent in nature, environments, water pipes, bodies of water, rocks, surfaces of living organisms. So there's biofilm all over in our world. Some biofilm may have some benefit, but for the most part, in the human body, I don't think they're really beneficial. They're detrimental to us.
Well, a lot of times, when I think of biofilms in a positive way, it's the breaking down of something. It's the breaking down of a material. So whether it's a wastewater treatment plant or a landfill, there's good bacteria in there.
Right. Yeah. But to me, the scary thing about biofilm is their resilience and their resistance and the communication between different types of organisms to strengthen themselves, the change of the makeup of their DNA that make them stronger, and then they're protected by this film. So let's just imagine that we're looking at a part of the body. Let's just look at the GI tract, for instance. And you have a biofilm that's occupying a space in the intestinal tract, and these bacteria are really, these bacteria have worked hard to create this environment for them and resistance, and then they break free, and they try to build another community. And a second biofilm across the way is doing the same thing. And then their bacteria break free.
When you start having too many colonies, then there's a problem.
and then you have different colonies that are coming together with different defense mechanisms, and they're creating a whole different environment. So that sometimes gets to be a runaway problem. And you have all these biofilm colonies that have taught each other how to survive, and then they meet together. So it's like gangs in the city who meet up and form another gang, and they use all their weapons and their rules to be worse than the ones where they came from. The hardest thing about biofilm is they tend to be impenetrable. So a lot of work in medicine is being done to try to figure out how do we slow this down. There's
Well, tell you what, a great place to stop when we come back from the break, because I want to touch on some of the diseases or some of the symptoms or some of the things that people may not know that, okay, am I getting attacked by biofilm? What does that manifest itself as? We're talking with Dr. Kevin Oberlander, Dakota Pharmacy, Dakota Natural Health Center, downtown Bismarck's Corner Drugstore. Or, like I like to call him today, Peter Brady from that Changes episode from the Brady Bunch. Anybody gets that reference?
Sadly, I do.
This is Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Super Talk. Welcome back to Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
You're tuned to Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270. I'm Steve Bach along with Kevin Oberlander, Dakota Pharmacy, Dakota Natural Health Center, downtown Bismarck's Corner Drugstore. We're talking about biofilm bacteria. So when I think about biofilms, I think of slack water. And you see that little skim, that shimmery, shiny, that not far off.
No, you're really not. And if you think about it, I talked earlier about how these biofilm are in our environment. They're in equipment, and these things, equipment needs to be broken down and scraped and brushed and cleaned, or these biofilm are detrimental to the surfaces of the equipment. Now imagine that's going on inside. We talk about the cells of the body rusting as they age, and we've got these biofilm occupying spaces and living inside of us that it's just unhealthy, and they're very, very hard to get rid of. They're almost impossible to dislodge. So there's a fair amount of work being done on biofilms. This is recent. This is fairly recent medicine.
So what are some of the diseases or symptoms that people go, okay, you don't know you have a biofilm issue? What are some of the things that manifest?
So we get patients all the time walking into the pharmacy complaining about being a candida person, where they're full of yeast and full of candida. And there's some tests that can show that. There's some stool sample testing.
Tell you what, yeast infections and fungal infections are probably two of the hardest things to get rid of from a treating perspective.
And I truly believe, like, these fungal infections that are impossible to get rid of, they've developed this mechanism of protecting themselves with the biofilm. So even if we have a topical fungal infection and we're trying to apply an antifungal and we're not successful,
like an athlete's foot or something like that,
and we're not successful, it's because they've got this protective matrix around themselves, and the medications we're putting on don't penetrate. There's an interesting thing that we've done in the compounding lab. There's some research that shows that ibuprofen will actually break down some of these matrices. So if we have somebody with a really bad fungal infection, athlete's foot, maybe a jock itch that's kind of run away in a kid, we'll add ibuprofen.
toenail fungus.
Yeah, toenail fungus is a big deal because it's so hard to get to. But we'll add ibuprofen.
Well, yeah, because topical treatments. I know a lot of people that it's gotten so bad they've removed toenails.
Oh yeah.
The only way to get to it.
We'll add ibuprofen to the antifungal medications because the ibuprofen seems to break down the biofilm so that our drugs get into these fungus. One of the mistakes people make when they're treating toe fungus, and we compound some toe fungus solutions, is they tend to put it on the nail, and the infection may actually be in the nail bed. So they need to apply it from the tip of the nail all the way back to the first knuckle, whether it's on your fingers or your toes. So you have to be a lot more aggressive than we are with it. But one of our favorite formulas, it does have ibuprofen in it.
So, but what a lot of those do as well is it's a precursor for another disease.
Yeah.
So if you've got a yeast issue or a fungal issue, that'll open the door for other bad things.
Sure. So, like I said, we have patients walk in a lot. I have a candida problem. I can't get rid of it. I've been tested, my physician or my practitioner. And we have anti-yeast formulas, things like caprylic acid. They're oral medications. They're marginally effective, and mostly because some of these yeast and candida internal infections have gotten out of control. So these simple supplements really aren't doing a very good job of eradicating it. And without starving these biofilms, which is really a dietary restriction.
So going back to the internal side of things, if there's a yeast issue diet plays a big role in that.
Does.
Because if you got a high sugar diet, you're feeding those. Yeast lives on sugar.
Yeah, and
anybody likes to drink beer or make homebrew, you know how that process works.
And people sometimes commit to an anti-yeast or anti-candida diet, and they can shrink the surface that the yeast and candida are occupying. But you fall off the wagon and you ingest some sugars, and remember, white food is sugar. Pastas and breads, those are sugars.
Carbohydrates. There's good carbohydrates and bad carbohydrates.
You can work months to shrink a biofilm candida infection in half, and in 2 days it can go right back to what it was. These are like piranha. You feed them, they explode.
So when you're looking at the treating, I can imagine from a dietary perspective, and we've talked about probiotics in the past. Yeah. Probiotics, very important part of fixing some of these issues.
It is, because, again, these biofilm house themselves and they occupy space and they adhere to surfaces and they're hard to dislodge. So if we do a good job of taking high quality, high cell count, rotate our formulas so we have a diverse population of bacteria, including in introducing prebiotics periodically to feed these guys, they can get to the surface that's being occupied and gradually occupy that space so that biofilm doesn't have any place to live. They become dislodged. That's going to make them weaker. So I think probiotics are really, really important.
When we come back from the break, I want to talk a little bit about some of the theories behind that. Now, you mentioned Dr. Stein.
Yeah.
And cutting-edge stuff.
Yeah.
And you think of funguses and yeasts and been around a long time, but we're just making strides now. So, understanding the human body and the makeup of the medical side of things it's an ongoing process. We'll find out more when we come back. This is Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270. I'm Steve Bakken, along with Kevin Oberlander, Dakota Pharmacy, Dakota Natural Health Center, downtown Bismarck's Corner Drugstore on Super Talk 1270.
Talk lineup is on Super Talk 1270. Check out the program schedule at supertalk1270.com and on the free Super Talk 1270 app. Talk of the Town, brought to you by Big Boy. Just get in line. It moves fast. Benchmark Mortgage. Call Joe Sheehan, your mortgage planner, at 701-400-3926. Dakota Pharmacy and Dakota Natural Health Center. We're here to help you stay well. Trademark Realty, Peak Automotive and Service, and Silver Ranch. Welcome back to Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
You're tuned to Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270. I'm Steve Bakken, along with Kevin Oberlander, Dakota Bismarck, downtown Bismarck's Corner Drugstore, Dakota Pharmacy, Dakota Natural Health Center. And we're talking about biofilm bacteria and some of the manifestations that come about from biofilms. There's some theories out there, Lyme's disease, C. diff, some pretty nasty stuff.
And some of these things we're doing a poor job of treating, and I think it's the industry thinks it's because they've developed their own biofilms. Lyme's is very difficult to treat, and we're using some antibiotics. And if the Lyme bacteria and virus community have developed a biofilm, the antibiotic being used is probably not penetrating that biofilm. So they're learning as they become more prevalent. They're learning how to protect themselves. So we have gram-negative, gram-positive bacteria. Typically, they're separate, but now we're learning that they're coming together. There's these communication circuits that we talked about. Symbiosis is they're stronger together. Their competence. They actually will make antibiotics and then treat themselves to become resistant to the antibiotic that they create.
Oh, wait, you're kidding, right?
No, I'm not.
And we haven't really talked about it a whole lot, but there's stories out there about becoming immune to different antibiotics. That's a big concern in this country.
Oh, absolutely.
As people get resistance.
Oh, no question. The overuse of antibiotics for decades previous is really part of the problem. But if you think about this house of bacteria, different combinations, and one of the things we're learning that they do is they're producing their own antibiotics to train themselves to be resistant. So now we're getting these resistant organisms without even throwing antibiotics at them.
All right, I'm going to get my sci-fi hat on here for a minute, and that's a sign of intelligence.
Well, they're very intelligent. If you think about their ability to communicate and change DNAs and then express themselves into other environments and meet up with other bacteria, and they just get stronger and stronger.
So now I'm thinking the whole zombie apocalypse thing could actually happen.
It probably could.
Yeah. Through bacteria.
Yeah. So some of the drug research is, what can we really do to inhibit these biofilm formulations? We talked a little bit about breaking down that matrix, using probiotics, using the proper antibiotics. There's some antibiotics that work for C. diff, but they don't clear it up completely. I've worked with some C. diff patients where it's come back.
For those that don't know, what is C. diff?
C. diff is a yeast. There's good yeast and bad yeast. C. diff's a bad yeast. So it occupies typically the lower bowel, and it's severe diarrhea, and people get pretty sick from C. diff, and it lasts a long time. So I've worked with some C. diff where we actually, on top of their antibiotic therapy, we'll use a probiotic called Saccharomyces boulardii. And Boulardii is our yeast bacteria. So it's a really, really good yeast. And the idea is to occupy the space where the C. diff lives with the Saccharomyces boulardii, so you have a better chance of dislodging it and excreting it. Once it's dislodged, your antibiotic therapy may work better. People go through these cycles of on antibiotics, off. We're seeing people get fecal transplants for some of these severe bowel infections. They'll take healthy
There
feces.
is nothing about that sounds pleasant.
They harvest feces from healthy individuals, test the organisms in them, and then they do these fecal transplants, and many times they actually work. But that's
I
extreme.
do not want to have to go there.
No,
ever.
But when you're when you're that sick, you will go there.
Yeah, you'll do just about anything to figure out some pathway of health and recovery. When you're looking at some of the discussions that are taking place, some of the science, and I mentioned Dr. Stein, stuff that's been around for a long time, we're just seeing some new research and new information coming forward now.
Yeah. So one of the things that I learned in my research for this is something called QSI, quorum sensing inhibition. So the research in the medical world and with medications and other modalities is interfering the ability for these organisms to communicate. So this quorum sensing is the process that these bacteria use to communicate with each other, and we're trying to inhibit that.
So most people are familiar with the Z-Pack from an antibiotic perspective.
Yeah.
That was the methodology behind Z-Packs.
QSI was some of the methodology behind Z-Packs. Personally, I think they would work better. I think the industry just got into these short pack treatments. So 5 days on and you're done.
Yeah,
and
quick response,
and then they went
a pill
to
for that. It'll fix you.
They went to the higher dose, 500 milligram tablets, one a day for 3 days.
And depending on who you talk to, some people think some of this resistance stems from some of the Z-Pack therapies that were out there because it was that short little window, and it was like little here. We're going to introduce you to it, but we're not going to knock you out.
Yeah, and I have some friends in the medical community. They kind of shy away from Z-Pack because they think we don't know, but they think there's some resistance from it. And, that's outcome-based medicine where they're seeing people back in their clinic where with a recurrence of an infection that was treated by Z-Pack, they try it again and it doesn't work at all. So now we created a biofilm, and these organisms have used that antibiotic to strengthen the communications that they need to communicate to their partners to make them really resistant to medications and treatment. So QSI is pretty interesting. If you can inhibit the communication of these bacteria, I think you isolate them, and then they're much, much easier to eradicate. When they're in this community and they have a shield around themselves, they're very, very difficult.
So when you're talking about the disruption with QSI of the communication, were you talking from colony to colony or within the colony?
I believe it would be within the colony. I'm not exactly sure. But if you can inhibit the communication and one of these bacteria break free, you would hope that whatever modality you're using would inhibit the communication from them to some of the other organisms that they're meeting up with in the environment.
That's some fascinating stuff. We're talking with Kevin Oberlander, Dakota Pharmacy, Dakota Natural Health Center. This is Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270. We're talking about biofilm bacteria, and we're going to get into Dr. Stein when we come back from the break. Some fascinating stuff, and she actually came up with a product out of this for oral health, which has made some incredible strides. This is Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Life. Super Talk. Welcome back to Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
You're tuned to Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270. I'm Steve Michael, along with Kevin Oberlander, Dakota Pharmacy, Dakota Natural Health Center, downtown Bismarck's Corner Drugstore. We're talking about biofilm bacteria. Somebody making some incredible strides out there, Dr. Stein. Fascinating story, and it's amazing where medical breakthroughs, and I'll call it a breakthrough, where it comes from, and usually there's a pretty good story along those lines.
So I met Dr. Stein through my association with PerioProtect, a dentist in Los Angeles certified in PerioProtect, and I got on a call with him because he wanted to deep dive on the dental gel that we made, and he's actually a really, really interesting guy. During our conversation, he said, I'm going to link in Dr. Stein. Dr. Stein's a microbiologist at Stanford who's developed a prebiotic treatment to break down biofilm in the mouth. Her story that she told us was her grandmother was in a nursing home suffering from Alzheimer's, and Dr. Emily went to visit her, and she was just appalled by the health of her mouth because she wouldn't brush her own teeth and she wouldn't let staff brush her teeth. So she'd gone months without any oral care. And Dr. Stein, her name is Dr. Emily Stein, she's like, what can I do to help her? I need to figure out how do we break down these oral biofilm in the mouth with food, because people will eat. And that's basically what she did, about 6 years of research. And having the resources at an institution like Stanford, she literally built a product, and I'm under a non-disclosure to disclose the ingredients because we're working on some things for pharmacies. But she literally has data with all, they use these fancy color graphs, electrospectrometries that show the activity of the treatment. They've showed and researched and published that 6 weeks using a lozenge that she's developed 3 times a day after meals, they show significant improvement in gum health in 76% of their patients. They isolate the bacteria in the oral cavity that are known to be part of Alzheimer's and some basic gum disease, 100% eradication of the bacteria in the mouth. An 82% reduction in the bacteria that cause bad breath.
Okay, so take a lozenge before you go to bed at night. No morning breath. So mention there's good and bad bacteria in the mouth. Yeah. So does this leave the good bacteria alone and it just goes after the bad bacteria? Because I'm guessing a lot of that is from the breakdown of the sugars.
Yeah, she's actually shown that it's pretty selective. And the mechanism of action is it blocks the sugars that tend to create plaque, and that's gum disease, and that was her original research. That's what she really wanted to do was treat oral health. So on her website, her product is called Daily Dental Cares. We're trying to put together a plan that we can carry it in pharmacies in the country because I think it's a great thing to offer to the public. And she's kind of all for it. Her research was done at Stanford, and she's recently moved to Minnesota. We work with a nutrition company in Minnesota that does a lot of our private label work. And I introduced Dr. Emily Stein and Josh at Nutridyne for them to create a private labeled product that would be available through Nutridyne, which really services some holistic clinics, pharmacies across the country, chiropractic offices. And she's excited about the opportunity to really expand. She's kind of worked with the dental community. She was really excited about it being able to expand into other healthcare avenues. One of the most interesting things about these lozenges is right now they're being used NASA's using them in the International Space Station. And
kind of messy to brush your teeth in space.
Apparently it's messy to brush in space. So she said...
And I get yelled at by my wife when I get a little toothpaste stuff on the mirror.
Yeah.
I can imagine in space.
Yeah, she says they basically ditched the toothbrush and they're using these lozenges after every meal because it inhibits the sugars again that create plaque, which is the biofilm buildup. And if you look at her statistics on things like bad breath and gum health, I believe they work. I don't think NASA would ship them up to the space station.
So it's a lozenge that you take, and most people, you're not supposed to chew lozenges, but people do. Yeah, so you ingest that because your mouth is the first step in your digestive tract. What does it do in the rest of the digestive tract?
Well,
you're ingesting.
Yeah. Dr. Stein told me she's been using just a dry powder for her own health for about 5 years now. Tiny little spoon that she just puts in water or sprinkles it on her food. Again, her goal was, how can I get people to eat something that inhibits these biofilm? So, and Dr. Arash he showed us in the video, he's just sprinkling on his food 3 times a day.
Ditch the salt shaker and start using that, huh?
Yeah. It has a little bit of an odd taste from what I've heard. I'm waiting for some samples so I can work with it. We're going to try to add it to our current Periogel formulation. She thinks, because Periogel is hydrogen peroxide, she really feels that oxygen is fuel for her product. She thinks if we can get them together, we're gonna get an explosion of antimicrobial effect in the mouth using these prescription trays and the perio gel that I formulated. But I also think that we need access to something like this dry powder that we can treat people systemically. So if somebody comes in, they have C. diff, we want to give them some Saccharomyces boulardii, which is a good yeast, but can we give them a scoop of this little powder 3 times a day that breaks down the biofilm matrix? And she's proven that that's what she's doing with this. So it's pretty incredible.
So fascinating stuff in the oral side of things. So many other diseases start with poor oral health.
Yeah.
So when I say medical breakthrough, this truly is.
I think it is. It's nothing like I've ever heard of. Dr. Keller, who developed the PerioProtect system, I think was one of the great finds for me. And working with him for 15 years, and his system works. But it doesn't always work. There's always a quadrant, not always, but sometimes there's a quadrant in the mouth that they can't get the pockets cleared up. And we really think that if we can add the Fosodent is the trademark name for the lozenges, and then there's another name for the powder. If we can add the powder to the Periogel, because Dr. Stein is convinced it'll survive for a couple years in another matrix, so we could manufacture this gel with this prebiotic powder in it that breaks down biofilm to do a better job of cleaning up all those quadrants in a patient's mouth. And this stuff works. PeriProtect works a lot. We have thousands and thousands of patients that use it for gum disease, and now we're going to put it on steroids. That was our conversation. Let's put PeriProtect on steroids, but let's use the products and the potential for the mass population that aren't committed to wearing a dental tray 2 or 3 times a day. Might be as easy as dissolving a lozenge in their mouth. Or doing a little scoop of powder in water and drink it every day to break down the biofilm that lives in your system. Yep.
Fascinating stuff.
It is really cool.
Yeah, that is some fascinating stuff. And timeline on when that product's available? Because otherwise you can go to her website and get the lozenges. But as far as Dakota Pharmacy having that on the shelves?
I have a meeting with our team, including Dr. Stein and Dr. Arash and Josh on Friday. We'll have a Zoom meeting, so we'll see.
Looking forward to that product coming to Dakota Pharmacy, Dakota Natural Health Center. Kevin, thanks for coming in today.
I'm glad I made it through.
I am. Peter Brady. This is Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270, Dakota Pharmacy, downtown Bismarck's Corner Drugstore. Joe Sheehan coming up next.
KLXX AM, Mandan, Bismarck, a Town Square media station, broadcasting from the View Community Credit Union Studio. Recorded. Sean Hannity, weekday afternoons starting at 2 on Super Talk 1270.
Talk of the Town, brought to you by Big Boy. Just get in line. It moves fast. Benchmark Mortgage. Call Joe Sheehan, your mortgage planner, at 701-400-3926. Dakota Pharmacy and Dakota Natural Health Center. We're here to help you stay well. Trademark Realty, Peak Automotive and Service, and Silver Ranch. Welcome back to Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Super Talk 1270. I'm Steve Bakken, and guest in the studio today. A great event coming up. One of the ones that I really enjoy from a charity foundation perspective, Make-A-Wish. They do so many great things, and we've got an event coming up out at the University of Mary, and special guest, Sophia, in today, a softball player for the University of Mary. Introduce yourself, and then we'll talk about Make-A-Wish.
Yes, so my name is Sophia Jansen. I am a part of the UMary softball team. I'm currently a junior at the University of Mary, getting a degree in biomechanics, but I'm also a part of our student athlete advisory committee.
So what position do you play?
I'm a pitcher.
So do you use the biomechanics side to be a better pitcher?
Sometimes.
Is that how the science works?
Sometimes I do, definitely. Sometimes it ties in very quickly, especially now with how quickly pitching has evolved.
See, that'll get you the perfect game.
Exactly. Just like that. Yeah. And so we have decided to partner with Make-A-Wish to help with them with this fundraiser for our basketball game.
Well, a little background on Make-A-Wish. I mean, Make-A-Wish does so many great things for kids. It's a sad story, but positive outcomes and positive stories come out of that. How did you get involved with Make-A-Wish? How did you guys decide that, you know what, this is where we want to go with our charitable side of being an athlete?
Yeah, so obviously Make-A-Wish is they help ages from 2.5 to 18, and so a wide spectrum of individuals, but I think Make-A-Wish touches every athlete's heart in so many ways. A lot of the individuals that end up with these terminal illnesses or malignant cancers, they want to be athletes. They want to have that dream. They want to be at the sporting events, and sometimes they just can't get it. And so us to be able to incorporate them into this event and to show our community support through these events, through these athletic events, and through saying athletes are willing to be back to you and come back to that community just shows that we're willing to be as one, as a community.
You know, you think about professional athletes, but on the collegiate level too, you know, whether you want to or not, you're role models for a lot of kids, especially fans of the sport that you happen to be playing in. So an opportunity to give back in that fashion through your sport for a great cause for the kids, that's got to be pretty cool. That's got to be a cool feeling.
Yeah, it definitely is. I think it definitely hits more that night when the event's going on and you get to see some of the kids smiling that are there, and you start seeing the impact of all the other athletes that will be there, not just like the softball team, but like when we start having our football athletes there and all of the U Mary organization that just comes together. It's definitely a cool night. So
you've got the raising funds for the Make-A-Wish Foundation, which does such great work with kids, and you know, getting that wish to kids and acting as a role model. So it's almost like you're paying off some dividends a couple times, because you got the event, you've got your role as a role model, and then that wish that you know, so kind of triple dipping there a little bit. But tell us about the event, because you guys worked with U Mary Athletics, working with the basketball program as well. Mm-hmm. You know, kind of a all hands on deck from an athlete perspective out at the University of Mary.
Yeah, so it is definitely all hands on deck. We're going to try to use as many sports teams as possible to just really show that all sports teams are willing to give back to this organization. We are going to have it at the U Mary basketball game on December 12th. At 4 o'clock starts our men's game, and at 6 o'clock starts our women's game. And we are going to do multiple different things throughout the night. And so we're going to do miracle minutes throughout like the game, where it'll just be free will donations. And then we're going to sell Make-A-Wish stars, where you can write like your favorite wish or your dream wish, kind of like what the kids do when they want their wishes, when they're trying to get their wishes granted. Just to show that community support, like everyone has a wish. It's not just you, and like everyone wants their wishes. And then we're going with a blue out theme, just like Make-A-Wish always is. They're always blue. They always wear blue. And then we are going with our other...
for argument's sake, we're going to say it's U Mary Blue. So
Yep.
Of course.
U Mary Blue. U Mary Blue. We'll keep it that way. Keep it simple. And then we're just going to continue to have fun with it. Whoever shows up... keep it simple and just try to have a good night with it.
So if you haven't had an opportunity to get to a U Mary basketball game, either men's or women's yet, mark it down your calendar. The night you want to be there, Tuesday, December 12th. Men's games begins at 4 o'clock. Women's game begins at 6 p.m. But the entire night, fundraising opportunities for Make-A-Wish. So if somebody would like, maybe they can't make the basketball game, but they'd like to help, because Make-A-Wish is such a great charity, and they want to support the work that you guys are doing as U Mary athletes. How do people get a hold of you, or how do people donate, or if they want to get involved and help out, how does somebody do that?
Yeah, so they can just reach out to our athletics department at the University of Mary, a lot of us are all hands on deck knowing this organization and this fundraiser that's coming up. It's one of our biggest ones right now. And so anyone in the athletics department will know. So you can just go onto our generalized UMary website and pull up an email, and they'll get you right to the information.
Perfect. Mark it down on the calendar, Tuesday, December 12th. Sophia, thanks for coming in today.
Yes, thank you for having me.
And thanks for helping put this on and raise money for a great charity.
Thanks.
December 12th, UMary hosting a Make-A-Wish men's and women's basketball games at the UMary Gymnasium on behalf of UMary's SAAC. So make sure you stop on out. Mark it down your calendar if you haven't been to a game yet. Actually, a great venue. I love going to games out at the University of Mary. Great court. Help with that home field advantage and help with donating and getting a kid to get their wish with the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Once again, December 12th, that's a Tuesday night. Games are going to be men's tipping off at 4 p.m., women's at 6 p.m., all helping the Make-A-Wish Foundation. This is Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270. When we come back, Joe Sheehan, your mortgage planner over Benchmark Mortgage. He'll be in next. We'll run through the numbers on Super Talk 1270.
Super Talk 1270.
Talk of the Town, brought to you by Big Boy. Just get in line. It moves fast. Dakota Pharmacy and Dakota Natural Health Center. We're here to help you stay well. Trademark Realty, Peak Automotive and Service, and Silver Ranch. Welcome back to Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
You're tuned to Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270. I'm Steve Bakken along with Joe Sheehan. He is your mortgage planner over at Benchmark Mortgage. Give him a call at 701-400-3926. And all right, so Joe, I have to start because before we get into the numbers, is anything with the Republican debates having a play on the markets? Because I watched some of it last night, except for when they're arguing and you can't hear them talk. And they're bringing up all these talking points and the inflation. And typically that would have some bearing on the market. When you've got presidential candidates talking about something, the market usually reacts to it. Mm-hmm. I'm not seeing any of that.
Well, that's because that's
Usually, when something's at the forefront of a presidential candidate, even the primary of a debate, it's in the media cycle because they're bringing it up on stage. Nothing's moving. Usually there's a reaction, and I don't see it.
But so it's always they're always the debates are always yesterday's news, right? I mean, you go back to I don't care what debate it was. Was there any difference between Clinton and Bush in terms of that recession?
No.
It didn't matter who was president. We were going to come out of that recession under Bush the same we did as Clinton, right? But who claimed the headline? And the problem is, if as a consumer, just an average working Joe, pun intended.
You don't work. He was a little late this morning. Yeah. You don't work.
Well, that's because I had my hair on fire because of these Verity home price drops.
Yeah, we'll talk about that too.
So you experience the economy after the economy is over, right?
And there's a lag. So usually the markets, there's a reaction in the markets, and I'm not seeing anything.
Because the inflation isn't what the market's reacting to right now.
No.
So you're on stage and you're talking about inflation, and inflation's kind of already on the way to solving itself. No help to the government at all, by the way, but finally enough rate hikes and enough catch up and enough. And what you're seeing now is consumer debt increase.
Credit card debt going through the
You're
roof.
seeing delinquent payments increase. You're seeing savings ratios depleted. You're seeing
because that's all a good thing for the economy.
So now the consumer's experiencing the
pain
of inflation.
Pain is starting.
Where the pain is starting
because the lag time. The pain is starting.
The pain is starting from the inflation. Inflation is almost over. So
we've only been talking about this for 2 years.
So the market's not reacting because the market's moved on. The market's moving on to recession. And this is where, like, the massive amount of information, I heard this mortgage lender social media on the Fed announced 6 rate cuts for next year. No, they didn't. First of all, the Fed never says stuff like that. The Fed barely says anything ever at all until it actually makes a move, because why? It's a market maker.
The market.
And market makers have to be incredibly careful about the words that come out of their mouth.
Because if you say something,
you can literally collapse an economy with one statement from the wrong. I mean, Dallas's former Fed, Fisher, I think it is, was on Squawk Box. And I was sitting there with my wife having a cup of coffee. And I go, watch the 10-year Treasury move while he talks.
Yeah.
And I go, and she goes, wow. And it wasn't like an incredible, but you literally could watch the 10-year Treasury move within the same, like as he got negative, Treasury yield went up. As he got positive, Treasury yield went down. And I said, here's the thing. He's a former Fed member.
Yeah.
Former Fed member. I go,
so if a current Fed member said anything.
Or Powell.
Right.
I mean, or Yellen, who has like now got this conglomerated power in her opinion of having been a Fed and the Treasury and now. But
is it just me or she looked like a little Q-tip? I had to ask that.
She looks like that.
Yoda's mom.
I don't know. Actually, you know what she reminds me of? She reminds me of the aunt that would show up to all your stuff and always remember your birthday.
Remember the gal from Where's the Beef?
Yeah, okay.
Where's the beef?
Yeah. So the reason why you don't see the market move is the market's already moving on. The market. So you're going to sit and pound on inflation and you're maybe right to do it as a candidate in terms of an example of how not to do something, because we didn't manage it very well.
Because the market's already felt the pain.
But the market's anticipating recession. The market's moved on. The market's now going, when is the Fed going to cut? And the Fed, and of course stocks are going, better cut soon. And
bonds aren't.
And bonds are like, yeah, and you have, and the Fed is like, we played
Treasury
this game.
Notes, yeah.
We played this game before, we've cut too soon. And so everybody's anticipating this massive rate fall. Folks, there's still $8 trillion worth of bonds sitting on the Fed's books they haven't been able to get rid of. If they get some space in the market to unload that, they probably need to. And if they're unloading bonds that are 2 and 3% long-term yields that were at premiums, who's going to come buy the 5 and 6% stuff?
Nobody.
So I'm not saying that rates won't go down, and I'm not saying that, but like just be leery of the exuberance that, okay, here rates are going to for sure. Like I'm hearing all kinds of, we're expecting rates to fall big time in 2024. Okay, what is big time? Are you talking about big time from the peak at 8.5?
2 percentage points? Maybe?
2 percentage points would be a big cut. Well, we're already there.
Big, yeah.
I can get you a rate quote in the 6s right now. So I mean, federal North Dakota housing, first time home buyer, FHA loan, 3.5% down, 5.9.
So it actually makes sense right now. If I were to get divorced, I could go buy another house.
Hey,
honey, it's just financial planning.
It was rhetorical. It was
just
an example.
Financial planning, honey.
Rhetorical.
Is it safe to say, though, that the Fed learned the lesson and we're not going to see?
It's never safe to say anything. Never safe to say because the lesson was learned.
I've talked to people who were clinging to the hope that we're going to go back to the artificially suppressed rates, and a lot of people that are Trump fans are thinking we're going to go back to these artificially suppressed rates. They can't do that. They should know better, right?
Listen,
because those low rates artificially suppressed.
Yes, number one, we should all know better that artificially anything is bad.
Right.
For necessary and not ideal. Like, so what Bernanke did was masterful with the way that he managed the economy nearly by himself through the Great Recession, but even he would go like the
went too long.
The beautiful thing about the way Bernanke managed it was he always felt like he was sorry to do it. And that's what you want in your that is what you want in your Fed. You even like when Volcker raised rates, but it was like oh my God, I hope this is right, and I don't want to do it.
This is gonna hurt. I'm sorry, but it's gonna hurt.
like I hope this is the right thing, and I don't want to do it, but it feels necessary, right? And Bernanke, when he was doing quantitative easing, always seemed to act like he wanted to get out of it, right? And that's really kind of what you want. You know, you want a doctor that doesn't want a job, doesn't want to be working for you, right? He wants you to be better. He wants you to be healthy. He wants to not be needed. You want a Fed that doesn't want to be needed. and I hopefully
we don't want to be needed. We just want to sit here and get paid.
And hopefully, you know, like and was stabilizing the market during COVID necessary? Yes. Was it ideal? No. Did they overdo it? Oh, for sure. Yeah. And so have they hopefully learned all those lessons? Yes, hopefully they have.
But you just said you don't count on them learning.
No,
lessons.
I mean, but we can say that the only time we've engaged quantitative easing so far, we have only engaged it when we have a global situation. The financial crisis of 2009 to 2018 and COVID. So hopefully we do keep that arrow in the quiver for something global, not just because, you know, we have a president that says...
Like World War III right around the corner, right?
Yeah, there we go. That could be.
Joe Sheehan, he is your mortgage planner over at Benchmark Mortgage. Give him a call because you need a plan. 701-400-3926. This is Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
App.
Now you can listen to Super Talk 1270 on Alexa.
Hiya.
Find out how at supertalk1270.com.
Goodbye.
Welcome back to Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270. Talk of the Town, brought to you by Big Boy. Just get in line. It moves fast. Benchmark Mortgage. Call Joe Sheehan, your mortgage planner, at 701-400-3926. Dakota Pharmacy and Dakota Natural Health Center. We're here to help you stay well. Trademark Realty. Peak Automotive and Service. And Silver Ranch.
You're tuned to Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270. I'm Steve Bogdan along with Joe Sheehan. He is your mortgage planner. You need a plan for your mortgage. If you think about it, your home, your biggest financial, for most people, their biggest financial nest egg. You know, you get a lot wrapped up in your house, so you want to do it right. So having a plan that pays dividends in a lot of other places than just having your mortgage. It's all part of your financial health. Give Joe Sheehan a call over at Benchmark Mortgage, 701-400-3926. And, you know, okay, we were talking a little bit about some of the numbers, a lot going on, but...
So just here's an example of things like how mortgage rates move. Right, so mortgage rates, they don't move a lot today. They're under pressure to be up a little bit. So if you got a quote for, I don't know, I'll give you an example. Let's say you got a quote for 7 yesterday, and you were paying 1% to get that 7, and now today you're paying 1.25% to get that 7% rate. So the cost goes up, you know, $250 per 100,000 to get that rate. The reason why it would be today, Japan announced the end of negative interest rates. Japan has been
explain the negative interest rate, because it's like you want me to pay to hold my money.
Yeah, so Japan has been operating. Their government has been operating. They're like, you know, we have the treasuries that we sell to raise money. They've been operating theirs under negative interest rates for over a decade. This happened in the financial crisis where.
People were looking for a safe place to park large sums of money that they weren't going to lose too much out of it.
Why would you pick Japan?
Yeah.
Right. And so why does announcing negative interest rates affect mortgage rates today? Well, because if they're now going to be willing to pay something for them, it's just more competition in the market. It's more competition against our mortgage bonds and against our treasuries.
Shouldn't competition be driving down, not up?
Well, no, because if you have to pay the investor more to buy your debt, you have to raise your rate to pay that price.
Gotcha.
And so this is a little example, right? But now when you get like 5 of these tidbits, like, okay, Japan quits paying negative mortgage
Cumulative.
rates. WTI is up $4 a barrel because Saudi Arabia is cutting supply and there might be more supply because now Russia's got a quip and they're now going to restrict oil prices out there, all inflationary, right? All potentially competitive, inflationary. And then the ECB makes an announcement that it's going to do something.
Earlier this week, China, believe it or not, announced that they found a huge oil field.
China reports a growth in GDP.
Mm-hmm.
And so you get like 5 or 6 of those headlines all combining, and the next thing you know, you go, geez, my 7% rate just became 7.5%. How did that happen? And that's how it happens. And because our mortgage bonds are competing with those headlines in the world to keep people buying our stuff versus buying something else. Or people are selling our stuff because they're afraid it's not going to make as much money in the future because of these headlines. And so, a couple other things that happened today. Good, bad. Next week, we have, the consumer price index, the producer price index, and we are on, you're not going to hear a lot from the Fed. It is the quiet period for the Fed. So that is in place until next Thursday. So the Fed's blacked out till next Thursday. No talking from the Fed. Anybody. So it's called the quiet period for the Fed speak, and then they do a policy statement next Wednesday. But now here's another thing that's important. The latest forecast on quarter 4 2023 GDP is now 1.3% from 5% seen in Q3. This is why. So you were asking me, why didn't the market react to?
It's already moved on to recession.
As the economy hits a wall.
Ding.
And are you sure that Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said in the late October that high yields were due to the strong economy. That comment was followed by the president's 6-week rally in rates with 10-year yield falling. Now, and of course, the 10-year I told you is a great bellwether, right? And remember, the 10-year was well over 5. We're at 4.1. Threatening the 3s on the 10-year now. So anyway, this is now, but does that mean mortgage rates are headed back? I don't know. And are we headed towards a recession? I don't know. And everybody that's been predicting that has been wrong, and they've been wrong by years, not months, not by days, not by weeks. They've been wrong by years. So eventually, are we going to have a recession? Sure. Someday you're going to have one, right?
But they've been predicting a recession for a while now.
Right. It may be that the soft landing argument was in play, and it's going to probably depend a little bit on how the Fed manages rates. But you have these guys already calling for six decreases in the Fed rate before the end of next year. I don't know how the Fed reacts to that.
There's no way. Unless you're going back to that lesson not learned about artificially depressing the rates.
I think hopefully one lesson the Fed has learned is you only act fast in emergencies, and even then, don't overdo it. Right? And you go back to COVID, and sure, you know what? It's hard to explain, folks, but literally, you call me in the morning, and I'm quoting you at 4.875.
I'll take
you call me at 1, call me back at 1, say, yeah, I'll take that 4.875. Man, I'm sorry, it's like 6. No, I'm not kidding you. There were 200 and 300 basis point swings in the bond price in the same day, within hours. And I could call you back at 2 hours later and go, hey, I'm back in, And so, and that was in 2 or 3 day period, right? And so the Fed stepping in, but did the Fed have to step into where rates would have been at 2.75? No. If the Fed would have just stepped in at all and just given the market a sense that there was going to be some governance,
stability, a sense of stability.
Yeah, would rates have stabilized? But maybe they would have stabilized at 5, and maybe they have stabilized at 4 or 4.5 or something like that. But anyway, so I just hopefully the idea that let's be involved, let's manage, but let's not overmanage. Let's react to emergencies. Let's make sure they're emergencies, and let's not overreact. But to what they learned during the Great Financial Crisis with Bernanke was that sometimes the Fed was the only one in the game, and everybody else was on hiatus from any kind of action. So
we've had this discussion. When you take a look at the policy coming out and the talking points coming out of the White House versus what the Fed was trying to do, I could still make the argument they're still the only one in the game.
Yeah, but the good news for everybody out there is that if you're in the market for a house or think you were going to buy a house next year, maybe consider doing it this year, because Verity Homes is doing a temporary price drop. We want to talk about that because one of their homes is price dropped by almost $40,000.
Yeah, and I want to talk about some of the programs that are out there around that as well, because not only is there a discount price on some of those homes in the market, and this is, we know how tight the housing market is in the Bismarck Mandan area, but connect that with a couple programs that are out there, and yeah, now might be the time to buy.
Get it under contract.
Yeah, just
move into it next year.
After winter's over? Nobody likes to move in the winter.
Hey, winter feels like it's over right now.
I know.
Cross my fingers.
Now you jinx it because wait till Friday. This is Talk of the Town. I'm Steve Biken along with Joe Sheehan. He is your mortgage planner over at Benchmark Mortgage. Give him a call at 701-400-3926. This is Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
Super Talk.
Welcome back to Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270.
You're tuned to Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270. I'm Steve Biken along with Joe Sheehan, your mortgage planner. Give him a call at 701-400-3926. And right now is a good time to buy a home. You heard me right. Interest rates be damned. One of the things we talked about interest rates is, A, the equity you get into a home with the higher interest rates, and B, depending on what the value of that home is, there's some pretty good bargains out there from a purchase perspective. And you've got more options, leverage as a buyer, some different things going on, plus package that up with some of the programs that are out there. We talked about North Dakota Housing Finance Agency and some other incentives that are there. Not a bad time to buy right now, and Verity Homes running one hell of a Christmas special going on right now.
Yeah, so temporarily price reduced. Just want to get themselves set for next year's inventory.
Merry Christmas, y'all.
But $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 off some of these homes. It's kept me hopping this week. I mean, but yeah, and you don't have to take the price drop. We can still build back in the buy downs or whatever you want to do to get the rate down. I was talking to a couple today about a buy down as low as 4 point, in the 4s. And so you can create this, make this work however you want to.
So the incentive from the builder actually gives you the opportunity to, if that's what you want, is that lower interest rate, you can go get that.
But if you want to just take the lower price, And there's all kinds of homes all the way from Lincoln to Mandan, Cobblestone. Man, Cobblestone's got some. In Mandan, if you want to live in Mandan, look at Cobblestone. There's some great priced homes on Cobblestone, and Cornice Loop up. And the cool thing about Cornice Loop is the homeowners association. $125 a month. $125 a month. Get this: you get snow removal for an event over 2 inches to your door, and you get lawn care. So my water bill last year alone, the summer of water I paid, I could have paid for the entire association fee.
And never had the bill.
And never had the bill and never mowed my lawn and never shoveled snow, which last year, and not as big an incentive this year, But last year, man, I'll tell you what.
Don't jinx it.
If Verity had come and offered to trade houses last year, when I was
you've been all over that.
Like, hey, here you go.
Associations and association fees are interesting too, because when you're looking at trying to buy a home and location matters and different amenities, that's one of the amenities you have to look at. Is there an association? What's the cost of that association? And what's that offset? What's the value for having a home there versus somewhere else? Because that can make a difference in a deal.
My snowblower's in the shop right now. What do you think the chances are that I'm going to pick that up for $125 or less?
Not going to happen.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's exactly the point, right? And that doesn't even count the Saturday that I spent trying to figure out if it was bad gas or a new spark plug or, So I've already spent a day of incompetence on this thing.
Yes.
Trying to figure it out and now now it's actually in the shop, where the professionals can try to figure out what I don't know.
After you screwed it up even worse.
What I'm sure it is, they tend to get, the filters tend to get plugged, but
right.
When you start digging that deep, when you don't work small engines every day, you start digging that deep. I mean, I'll wind up. Here's the deal. When
you put it back together, there's extra parts, aren't there?
I start pulling. It's been long enough. I was raised by an automotive machinist, but it's been long enough that. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to wind up spending just as much in tools, the right tools to fix it.
Well, that's a plus.
Or I'm going to tear it apart in such a way that I'm going to wind up just getting a new snowblower. And because you're right, like I'm going to have all the extra parts.
A box of extra, but I think it works.
My wife will be like, "Why did you start a campfire out in the yard?" "Oh, that's a snowblower, honey." And I put the carburetor back together on.
See, my wife's like, "Why do you have all these tools?" Well, yeah, but look at the money I save when I fix things. And fortunately, she hasn't asked what I've spent on the tools.
Yeah, there are repair guys will all tell you about how much more work it is to fix something somebody else started.
Oh yeah. And they tend to frown on you go to the bottom of the list when you just hand them a box of parts and go, "Yeah, can you figure out what's wrong and put this back together?"
They look at you and you go, "You know how to fix that? A new snowblower."
So the associations matter. Some different amenities.
Yeah, go check these things out. I'm telling you, there's twin homes
deals out there right now,
and you can get even if it's like something that's not going to close for 4 or 5 months, like it's still under construction or going to be constructed. They're offering the price now. So even if so you could literally go put one of the twin homes that's still under construction under contract for closing in the spring right now.
So they have inventory for a month, couple months, 4 months out. So whatever your timeline looks like.
Yeah.
Well, I can't think of a better way to,
And those prices are going back up after the beginning of the year. So
yeah. So a little Christmas present for people that may be looking for homes. And then couple that with some of the programs that are out there and some of the incentive packages.
Buy downs, lender credits.
You can get back down to that interest rate that you think you may need to get into that home. But again, there's a lot of different variables, a lot of different combinations. That's why a mortgage planner is important. How do people get a hold of you, Joe?
701-400-3926.
Benchmark Mortgage. He is your mortgage planner. Make sure you check it out. Joe, thanks for coming in today. Yep. This is Talk of the Town on Super Talk 1270. Don't forget, Operation Christmas Morning, your chance to donate coming up tomorrow at Shields in Kirkwood Mall on Super Talk 1270.
KLXX AM, Mandan, Bismarck, a Town Square media station, broadcasting from the View Community Credit Union Studio.